This is the new 2023 Porsche 911 GT3 RS, the 992 GT3 RS. And it's a track-focused version of the 911 that is absolutely insane. I mean, just look at it. Even though this shares all but 2 letters of its name with the regular 911 GT3, it is clearly a completely different beast. So today I'm going to review the new GT3 RS and show you all of its quirks and features. Before I get started, be sure to check out Cars and Bids, which is my enthusiast car auction website for cool cars from the modern era with free listings. You can list your cool car for free and auction it on Cars and Bids. And you should, because we've had some great sales lately, including this Ferrari 458, which sold for just under $205,000, this wonderful Bentley Continental Super Sports, which brought just under $160,000, and this great Chevy Impala SS Old School sold for just over $25,000. If you're looking to buy or sell a cool enthusiast car from the modern era, the 1980s and up, Cars and Bids is the place to do it. With daily auctions, great selection, and free listings, check it out, carsandbids.com.
All right, it's time for the quirks and features of the GT3 RS.
And I'm going to start with the engine, where there's something rather interesting. If you look at the numbers on paper, the GT3 RS isn't really all that different from the lowly GT3. They both have the same 4-liter flat 6. In the GT3, it makes 502 horsepower. Here, it makes 518, 16 more horsepower. But this car is actually down in torque, 343 pound-feet versus 346. The exact numbers don't really matter, but the point is they're not that different when it comes to power, and yet the GT3 RS is a much faster car. Porsche says this gets around the Nürburgring more than 10 seconds faster than a 992 GT3, which is a significant amount of time on a racetrack, even one as long as the Nürburgring. And that should give you the idea that this is a totally different animal from a regular GT3, even if the power numbers look similar. Now, the key to the new GT3 RS's extra performance compared to the GT3 and every other Porsche model, it's not one big specific thing. Instead, it's a bunch of little stuff added together where you get incremental gains in every area that all adds up to a much faster car. And to help explain some of the little stuff, I'm going to start in the front luggage compartment, except it isn't a luggage compartment in the new GT3 RS. You can see it's been completely covered, and that's because there is a giant radiator under here for cooling. In other Porsche 911 road car models, the radiator is split into several parts to kind of fit it in with the luggage compartment. For this car, they said screw it, and they put on a huge radiator right in the center for improved cooling, the design borrowed from the 911 RSR race car. Now, that takes away all your storage space, but in a GT3 RS, you probably don't really care that much about storage space, but the benefit is, in addition to more cooling, it makes room for active aero underneath the car. So a lot of modern sports cars have active aerodynamics, a spoiler that'll come up, or louvers that'll change. This has that, plus under the car, it has aero that will switch positions to help make this car faster. And there's room for that aero in this car, in part because this giant central radiator has been moved here instead. Now, switching to a giant central radiator up front also gives Porsche more room in the wheel well area for improvements in aerodynamics and in airflow, some of which we can see. You have this canard here to direct airflow. You have these little vents above the wheel well that help to improve airflow and aerodynamics for the wheel area. And most importantly, you have directly behind the wheel this cut in the body line going down the center of the car, which Porsche says dramatically improves aerodynamics and airflow, again, in this frontal wheel area. Now, this cut is also seen on the new Cayman GT4 RS, but it was originally pioneered pioneered by the 911 GT1 race car, which had a very distinctive cut on its body line for this same purpose. Well, now it's being integrated into road cars like this, and you can see it here. And you can also see it in the back, a similar body line cut, again to provide better aerodynamics and airflow now for the rear wheels. You have it both front and rear for better aero in this car. Again, it's the little things. And speaking of those little things, an aero in this car, underneath you have a fully paneled underbody. For the first time in a GT3 RS, it's all panels under there, which of course improves aerodynamics and airflow underneath the car. But I'm not ready to move away from the front of this car just yet, because there is still a lot more to cover up here, like the fact that the hood has these giant nostrils. You can see two huge nostrils on either side in the front. Obviously, that takes the warm air out of the radiator and sends it back away, which actually isn't great because it sends warm air up over the car and towards the engine, which you don't really want. You want cool, dense air in an engine. You want to keep the warm air away. So this isn't the best design, except Porsche figured out a way to deal with it. You see these little fins on the roof? Just little 2-inch high fins. Those apparently channel the warm air away from the engine. As you're driving along, the warm air comes off the radiator through those nostrils. It goes up over the roof, and then those vents help to direct it away from the car so the engine isn't awash in warm air. Do they actually work? Porsche insists that they do. Personally, I'm skeptical, but they are there, and it's another good example of the little things that help make this car just that much faster. And those little things are even more important when you consider another crazy fact. This car is actually heavier than a regular GT3. Standard GT3 weighs 3,160 pounds. This weighs about 3,190, a little more. It's not a huge difference, but this car is about 30 pounds heavier. And I already told you it's not really that much more powerful, and so it's quite impressive that it is 10 seconds faster around the Nürburgring. So you're wondering, how could the lightweight, track-focused GT3 RS be heavier? There are a few reasons, but the biggest of which is the body. This car uses the wider body from the 911 Turbo. It's widened out compared to the standard 911 body, and thus it is heavier. And not only is the body heavier, but when you make a car wider, you have to elongate components underneath the car. They become heavier, and of course the wheels and tires have to be wider to fit under the new wider body, and so they become heavier. So a major driver of this car's little weight disadvantage compared to the GT3 is that wider body and the things that have to be widened as a result. But with that said, there are some big advantages to using the turbo body on this car. One is those wider wheels and tires, better grip, and that makes the car a little bit faster. You also can put these little holes in the rear wheel arches, which is better for aerodynamics. Air flows into there, it doesn't go into the engine, it comes out behind the rear wheels, which improves airflow around this car and aerodynamics. That wider body allows for that and makes this car just that much grippier on the racetrack. But another major driver of this car's slight additional weight compared to the GT3 is this rear wing, which is absolutely huge. It looks big on camera. You can see big rear wing. I can tell you, it looks even bigger in person. This is one of the most massive, giant, ridiculously huge rear wings I have ever seen mounted on any car, and I've seen a lot of them. Now, Porsche says this wing provides 40% more surface area than the wing in the GT3. That's impressive because that wing's already pretty big. Porsche also says this is the first road car they've ever made where the wing height is higher than the roof height. Yes, you heard that right. This car is tallest in back with these swan neck wing supports. That's the highest point, not the roof, and that contributes to the massive look of this massive wing. But it's not just the size that makes this wing so heavy. You look closely and you can see little hydraulics in there. This is another component of this car's active aerodynamic system. The wing will adjust its position using hydraulics as you drive along. This is a tremendously cool feature because it means you can make the car as slippery as possible, minimal drag, if you're just trying to go fast, like on a drag strip or a straightaway on the racetrack, or if you're going into corners, the wing adjusts to enhance the downforce to make the car stick to the ground better. And it can happen frequently and infinitely as you drive along, going from slippery to full drag. In fact, this rear wing hydraulic situation can even act as an air brake. When you're coming to a full stop, it'll go as far up as it can to help provide the most possible drag to slow you down. Very cool feature. Again, the little things that help make this car faster, but it does add weight, adding a whole hydraulic system back here. So you gain a lot, but you give up some. Now, with that said, the a lot that you gain might be a little bit more than you think. Porsche says the total amount of downforce that this car can make between the wing and the front active aero that you can't see under the car comes out to 1,900 pounds of downforce. That's a big figure, and it is more than double what the last GT3 RS made. You usually don't see huge gains like that in cars like this. Usually it's 10% more this, 20% more that, but here downforce has doubled due to this wing, and that helps the car put down faster lap times. Simple as that. By the way, in terms of downforce, Porsche also says this car makes 3 times the downforce of a regular 992 GT3. 3 times. It's an unbelievable figure just for 2 more letters. RS. And there are a lot more enhancements that we can't see in the engine. For instance, Porsche says new cams are responsible for that slight increase in power. Again, about 16 horsepower more than the GT3 with the same engine. Not a huge amount, but it's the little things that help. Porsche also says a revised oil cooler provides 20% more cooling, which will be helpful on hot days on the track, doing full laps. The car gets hot, the oil cooler's there. Porsche also says they've revised the cylinder head in this car to optimize its performance with oil supply at high lateral acceleration, meaning you're going hard through corners, you're not going to have any oil starvation issues because of the design of the cylinder head in this GT3 RS. Again, all the little stuff, but none of these we can see because you can't look at the engine in a modern Porsche 911. There's no way to open this compartment and actually get a look at the work of engineering art that's back here. Instead, you can open a couple of flaps. You pull this little switch in the driver's footwell, and that unlocks, well, this flap back here. You can see it says push. You push on it, and then it pops open, you pull it off, and that's where you add coolant, and you'll notice the flap is being held on by a nylon strap. It is the same deal over on the other side. You've unlocked the little flap, you go over here, you push on it, pull it off, and that's where you add oil. And again, the flap is being held on by a nylon strap. They didn't want to bother with a hinge. That would have been too heavy. So the nylon strap is the lightweight solution. That is weight savings. But some weight savings measures are clearly more effective than others. Those little flaps in the back are kind of ridiculous, but not ridiculous is this car's lightweight body, which makes extensive use of CFRP, carbon fiber reinforced plastic, which is an expensive but lightweight material that helps get the car's curb weight down. Most body panels are made of it. The rear wing, the doors, the hood, the roof, the front fenders, and even the seats are all CFRP, which helps to get this car's weight as low as possible to optimize it for the track. This car also has special lightweight glass that isn't as, well, heavy as normal glass, a little bit lighter, and you save a little bit of extra weight there. And this particular GT3 RS is especially lightweight because it is a special edition. You can see the green and white paint scheme here. This is intended to recall the original 1973 Carrera RS 50 years ago. A lot of them were made in the same green and white, and so now this special edition model has come out to commemorate that. Now these will be limited production and only offered for the US market in model year 23 and 24. Porsche hasn't given a total number that they're building, but it's not going to be a lot. But the important part is that all GT3 RS models, this RS Tribute Special Edition, have all of the good stuff. And in this car, that means, well, for one thing, magnesium wheels. These save about 20 pounds compared to the regular wheels. They are an option on the standard car, but they are standard here on the RS Tribute version. Now also, all of the RS Tribute cars come standard with the Weissach package, which is an option on the regular GT3 RS, standard here, and it makes the car more, Well, more. It includes an exposed carbon fiber roof, as you can see, also exposed carbon fiber on the rear wing, which just makes it cooler. You also have exposed carbon fiber on the hood, which again makes things cooler. And inside on the seat headrest, it says Weissach RS with a picture of Porsche's racetrack at Weissach. And there's a little plaque on the dashboard commemorating that this car has the Weissach package. And one other Weissach benefit, the shift paddles have a special magnetic design that just makes them feel more mechanical, more special, like each shift matters more, and you can only get that magnetic upgrade with the Weissach package. And yes, that's right, I said shift paddles, because this car has a PDK automatic transmission. In fact, it's only offered with a PDK automatic transmission. Porsche has a rule that they don't offer manuals on their RS models. Manuals are available on basically everything else, but they figure if you want an RS, you want the optimal performance, and that is PDK. So no manual transmission available. But PDK is different than what you get on a standard 911. Here it has 7 gears instead of 8 like the regular 911. That 8th gear isn't really necessary. It's for highway speeds and increasing fuel economy, which won't be priorities of GT3 RS owners. By going to a 7-speed, they save about 45 pounds. Again, the little things. Now, since I was just talking about shift paddles, let me move back over to the steering wheel, which is probably the most interesting and craziest aspect of this new GT3 RS, because there are a lot of new controls mounted on the steering wheel. Over on the left side, you have something marked DRS. This stands for Drag Reduction System. And the way this works is you can use this little dial to make the car have less drag. Using the active aero, you can turn up the slipperiest possible setting in case you want some high-speed run, you're on a straightaway or a drag strip, you want to go as fast as possible without the drag interfering from the aerodynamics. So you go into DRS maximum and it makes the car as slippery as possible. Now, you cannot just keep it in full DRS, drag reduction mode. The car will notice if you're in a corner starting to turn hard on a racetrack, and it will go back to its normal drag setting to provide you with extra downforce. But if you want it to be especially slippery, you can dial that up on the steering wheel for optimal straight line acceleration. And there's more. You also have 4 little dials on the steering wheel, as you can see. On the left, PASM and PTV+. On the right, the drive mode dial, and then ESC and TC. Now, drive mode, pretty self-explanatory, and ESC, TC, that's your stability control and your traction control. To change the setting there, you press the little button in the center, and then on the gauge cluster screen, you can adjust your stability control and your traction control to various different settings depending on exactly how much you want. If it's raining and you're scared driving home from the racetrack, you want to turn this all the way up so you don't slip and fly off the road, you can do that. If you're on the racetrack, you can dial all this stuff down and just go at it alone with no driver aids, and you adjust that here. On the left side, PTV+, that's Porsche torque vectoring, which controls like power and braking of the inside wheels when you're in a corner, and you have the ability to adjust and control that. Same thing with PASM, that's Porsche Active Suspension Management. You press the little button in the center there, and again, you can dial in like your suspension travel front and rear to make the car stiffer or more compliant. You can choose all of that stuff on the steering wheel. This car is controllable for the racetrack like never before in Porsche history. Now, beyond the steering wheel, the interior of this car is pretty similar to what you'd find in a regular GT3, right up to the lack of back seats. You'll find them in a regular 911, but not here in the GT3 RS. And speaking of seats, you have these full sport bucket seats that really hug you while you're driving and keep you in place on the racetrack. That's what you get if you get the RS. You will also notice that the handle to get out of the car is actually a fabric loop. The door handle is gone, replaced by this loop in an attempt to save weight. Even cooler, the grab handle you use to close the door is carbon fiber, which just looks and feels cool every single time you close the door. Also worth noting in this interior, some subtle but neat upgrades to transform this into the Carrera RS Tribute model. For one, you can see the green stitching, which matches the green exterior color. Subtle, but kind of cool. You also have RS imprinted onto this center armrest, which is actually a center console storage lid, RS, that's exclusive to the Carrera RS Tribute models. And the door sill, you can see, says Tribute to Carrera RS, to remind you that your GT3 RS is a little bit more special than everyone else's. One other interesting upgrade to the Tribute model, on the edge of the rear wing, you have an American flag, because like I said, this special version is only offered here in the United States. And so that American flag commemorates the fact that you can't get it anywhere else. And by the way, speaking of options, two others that I should mention. Even though this car comes standard with an enormous amount of performance stuff and upgrades for racetrack use, carbon ceramic brakes are optional, not standard on this car. Some people don't want them on the racetrack, so Porsche makes it so you don't have to get them. Also optional is an axle lifter. This car is very low. You might want a lifter to clear like steep driveways or curbs, but again, you don't have to if you don't want. It adds weight, but it also adds convenience. I suspect most people will get it, but it's on the options list. All right, driving the new GT3 RS on the racetrack. Got a roll cage back here. It's how you know this is not a US car. They don't let you put a roll cage from the factory on a road car in the United States. All right, here goes. I'm following Patrick Long, who's one of the most famous Porsche racing drivers, at least in the modern era. I will not be able to keep up, but I can still drive this thing pretty quick. He fades in so well to the corners. Woohoo! I've never been on this track. Whoa! And that shows. All right, first impression is obviously this car does exactly what you hope that it does and what you want it to do, which is, well, they've been beating on it on the track all day, and then I get into it. I'm the last person getting in this car, and it's no problem. Ready to go, ready to do more laps. I go to a lot of these events, they're changing tires, they're changing brakes. They might be doing that here at night, but this car has taken a beating today, and it is handling it no problem. Patrick, late racing braking here. I don't know what I'm doing. This car is just, it's everything you've ever wanted from a track car. It has an enormous amount of power, it handles incredibly well, and it steers incredibly well. I mean, there's no other way to put it. Power is great. You know, you hear 340 pound-feet or whatever the hell that number is, and you kind of think it's a joke, and then you actually get behind the wheel and it's fast. Like, this car is seriously fast, and it feels a lot torquier than that. This car probably has the widest delta between the torque figure and the torque feel of any car that I've ever been inside. Oh, this car is so just poised. The handling is so fantastic. It really is. It just steers and handles so well. The turn-in is amazing. It doesn't have the precision of some exotic cars, but it doesn't need it because the handling is so good. The way it goes through the rest of the corner, not just the initial turn-in, but the way the car goes through the corner is just absolutely amazing. It just feels so poised and so capable through these corners. There's absolutely no body roll. The way the car rotates just feels so natural, and it feels like you know what you're doing, and it just seems so tremendously capable of sticking to the road regardless of what you give it. It's absolutely fantastic. Now, is it dramatically better than a GT3? It must be, based on the numbers. For a person like me who's not a racetrack guy, I can't tell the difference. And I suspect the majority of people who buy these cars, that'll be true of them also. They won't be able to tell the difference. They're just people who want to look cool in a GT3 RS. But there will be some people who go in and take this car to its optimal levels, and that's where I think this would really shine over a GT3. Man, it is so impressive. There's just no situation where this car feels anything other than totally poised and totally ready to just go. Great brakes too. I mean, fantastic. This car obviously has carbon ceramic brakes. You know, I've never felt carbon ceramics are quite as good as steel brakes in hard braking, but they don't fade. And again, this car's had lap after lap all day on this track, and the brakes feel great. God, I mean, there's just everything in this car. There's power, there's acceleration, power, there's braking, there's steering, there's handling. It is the perfect sports car. That's just what this is. It's the sports car. It is like not one of the best, not among the best. This is the 911, the Porsche to go high speeds on the track. The only drawback is that on the road, I suspect it wouldn't quite be so forgiving and so appealing. I've never liked that about GT3 RSs. some people don't care. Some people are like, yeah, it's no problem. Let's have some fun on the road with a purpose-built race car, effectively. I don't quite feel that way, but some people do, and they really enjoy these cars, even on the road, because it's kind of a flex. What an immensely cool car. Woo! Woohoo! That's 112, 115, 124. And again, this car's just been beat on all day doing this. No big deal. AC on, cruising. It's such a fun road car that feels kind of like a race car. God, it just could do anything. And so that's the new 992 Porsche 911 GT3 RS. This is a truly crazy, ultra-focused track car, probably the most ultimate track-ready road car that Porsche has ever built. It brings a totally new level of insane performance to the 992 lineup, and I'm thrilled that I had the chance to review it. And now it's time to give the new GT3 RS a DOUGSCORE.
And the DOUGSCORE is here, 69 out of 100, which puts the new GT3 RS in great company. Just a point behind the amazing Lamborghini Huracan STO, a point ahead of the regular GT3. Truthfully, I loved the new GT3 RS, but it has become massively expensive and dealerships will mark them up even more, and some of the tremendously detailed technical items take a bit of raw fun out of the whole experience. This is a perfect car if you want to be the fastest Porsche on the racetrack. Otherwise, stick to a GT3, or frankly just a regular 911 Turbo, which has all of the fast and a lot more daily driverability.